I'm sorry. Hi. Can you see and hear me now? I think I just pulled a Tommy and wasn't being seen or heard for a minute, but that's okay. There was nothing important. Hi, Cosmic. Love you too. I love all of you. Um, I'm starting this video with a trigger warning because this is a difficult topic to. Oh, awesome. Thank you. Excuse me. I apologize for that. Um, I still have a little bit of the CVID and a little bit of, or a whole lot of the digestive problems. So that might happen throughout this video. Hey, Kristen, what's up? Oh, perfect. Well, then, if Kristen, here, check this out. I know how to do this now. Kristen just got out of therapy, which is really good because this is going to be a really difficult topic for me to discuss, but it's incredibly important to me, and it's incredibly important for it to reach as many people as possible. The story is heartbreaking. And I don't have a ton of details because, of course, the program, the Troubled Teen Industry program, Trails Carolina, it's a wilderness camp in Transylvania County, North Carolina, on August, for goodness sakes. I am nervous. This is my first topic live. On February 3rd, a 12-year-old boy was found dead. He was found dead on the floor of his bunkhouse less than 24 hours after he was dropped off at Trails Carolina. Now, I've learned a lot about this place. I have videos, I have search warrants, I have articles that have been written about this, but just the general story is that Trails Carolina is a troubled teen wilderness program. If you look up Tonaway Lake area in Transylvania County, North Carolina, it's all forest. 10 years ago, a 17-year-old boy named Alec Lansing had run away from the program, and he had climbed up a tree. I'm not sure if that was to hide and have a view of what was going on, to hide from these people. But he fell from the tree and he broke his leg. He broke his femur bone, and he fell down like a ravine, and he died of hypothermia. Trails Carolina waited 5 hours to contact authorities before they let them know that Alec Lansing was missing. And now, not saying the name of the young boy that has passed, but I'm going to very much expose his story because we really, hey, Polly, I see you. So we're going to start with this video here explaining what happened. I appreciate your patience. So we're going to do this now. Right here. Let me know if you can hear this, okay? Wait, let me get that. There we go. Okay, thanks for bearing with me.
All new at 6, questions mounting for a North Carolina youth will.
Uh-oh. I apologize.
Wilderness program after a 12-year-old boy died there last week.
The program is called Trails Carolina, and it has been the subject of a years-long WBTV investigation into claims of abuse and mistreatment by former participants and staff members. Chief Investigative Reporter Nick Oxner joins us in the studio with details of the latest death.
So, Nick, this isn't the first child to die at Trails Carolina.
Yeah, Siobhan, Molly, a 17-year-old Trails Carolina participant died in 2014. Less than a decade later, despite our investigation and warnings from former staff and students, a 12-year-old boy now dead just 1 day after he arrived at the program.
I remember making every night, praying to a God I don't even believe in, saying, if you get me out of here, I promise I will do whatever I can to help whatever child so they don't have to go through this.
That's Kathleen Riley talking about her time at Trails Carolina.
These are called therapeutic wilderness
programs.
Yes.
Did you get much therapy?
There's no real therapy that happens.
Riley went to Trails in 2012. 2 years later, another participant, 17-year-old Alec Lansing, died after running away from counselors. Now the program's facing new scrutiny after a 12-year-old boy died just 1 day after arriving. This release from the Transylvania County Sheriff says staff called 911 after the boy was unresponsive. The sheriff says an autopsy found his death was not natural, but there aren't yet more details. How surprised were you when you heard another child died at Trails Carolina?
I mean, to be honest, I wasn't surprised at all.
Meg Applegate runs a nonprofit called Unsilenced, which advocates against wilderness therapy programs like Trails Carolina.
There aren't regulations in place in any state to be able to facilitate safety and to ensure safety for parents.
WBTV's previously found a trail of lax oversight at Trails Carolina. Records show state regulators inspect the facility once every 2 years and rarely follow up on violations in between that time. In a statement Thursday, a spokeswoman for the NC Department of Health and Human Services said staff has been on site in recent days and, quote, takes seriously our role to investigate all complaints, including this tragic death at Trails Carolina.
I hope that this is a wake-up call for North Carolina. I hope it really lets legislators know that change has to happen in order to keep the youth of North Carolina safe.
A spokeswoman for Trails Carolina sent a statement Thursday saying in part, quote, a young person's life was tragically lost. Our priority since that day has been to acknowledge and respect the unfathomable impact on this family's life.
Parents are expecting safety, they're expecting treatment. However, they're not receiving that. And youth who are leaving these facilities are calling themselves survivors. And for any health system in the world, that isn't something that you would expect to see.
Now, state senators have previously sent letters asking questions about wilderness programs like Trails Carolina, but lawmakers haven't taken any substantive action. It's worth noting that state regulators from NCDHHS are required to inspect this facility once every 12 to 15 months. But again, I've found that's not what they're doing, even in the face of the long history of violations at this facility. Today, a DHHS spokeswoman said nobody would answer our questions on camera. We plan to ask them those questions in the coming weeks anyways. Molly?
So that's the first video. Give me a second here. That's the first video. I felt that it was important to start there. It also does feature Meg Applegate. She is a friend of mine. She is the CEO of Unsilenced. I would suggest anybody who wants to know more about the troubled teen industry to go to unsilenced.org. We do amazing work. I don't do much yet, but I am starting to by speaking out. Now, something that was slightly mentioned, and in that they have had many violations. Let me make this clear. And yes, they only do it every 2 years because there's no regulations in North Carolina, slight regulations. The state that has no regulations is Utah, and they have over 100 troubled teen industry programs actively working in Utah right now. But what I found out mainly through this channel right here, and I find them to be amazing, this channel, WBTV out of Charlotte, North Carolina, there have been 50 what they call deficiencies or violations between 2010 and 2019. Now, 10 of them were for improper medication handling. That's disturbing in itself. I'm just checking my notes. They were fined $12,000 for the death of Alec Lansing. I'm pretty sure that the cost of a 17-year-old boy's life is a lot higher than $12,000. I want to go to, it is a scam, Rolling Stone. It is. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry that victimizes children and their families just for having issues with any. I went through this from the ages of 14 to 17. I was in 3 different residential treatment programs, and all it really taught me how to do is drugs, actually, and how to get away with it. So the next thing I want to show is a video about the warrants that were issued. And this is also No, this is a different channel. This, I think, is from Florida, but this channel does a lot of really great information. So we're going to go with this.
At a Transylvania County wilderness therapy program where a 12-year-old died. In a letter today, the state warned Trails Carolina cannot take new admissions until the investigation is complete and must discontinue the use of a sleep practice while the investigation is ongoing. You better believe investigative reporter Jennifer Emmert uncovers more about how the boy was found and why investigators call it suspicious. And we do want to warn you, some of the details revealed are disturbing.
A total of 23 pages detail what 2 Transylvania County detectives found at Trails Carolina February 3rd. According to the warrants, when detectives arrived, the 12-year-old was lying on the floor in the bunkhouse, naked from the waist down, his pants on the floor near his shoulder. Counselors couldn't explain how that occurred. A CPR mask covered his face, but he had also foamed at the mouth, causing detectives to question if he was poisoned. The warrants state the boy was loud and irate when he arrived, refused dinner, but ate snacks. He stayed in a bunkhouse described as a square structure made of wood. According to the detectives, Trails Carolina protocol for the first night is to sleep on the floor in a small tent or bivvy, collapsed on one side and held with a flex pole at the other. Inside the bivvy is a sleeping bag, and on the zipper of the tent is a small alarm that goes off when you exit. According to a counselor, around midnight, the boy experienced a panic attack. 2 counselors stood along the wall, but didn't mention if they assisted. The counselor told detectives the boy could exit the bivvy at any time. But when he described it to detectives, he stated, "We would open or close the bivvy." The boy was checked at midnight, 3 a.m., 6 a.m., and was found dead at 7:45 a.m. The warrants say when detectives in Transylvania County DSS tried to talk with 4 kids in the bunkhouse, Trails Carolina staff refused. Staff also refused to disclose their whereabouts. The camp has 4 locations, 3 in North Carolina and 1 in South Carolina. In a statement, Trails Carolina claims their staff have fully cooperated with local law enforcement's investigation and that our students have cooperated to the extent authorized by their parents. According to the camp, children were moved to protect them from seeing what was happening, not to avoid investigators. Trails Carolina is conducting its own investigation. Trails Carolina maintains there is no evidence of criminal conduct or suspicious acts. Warrants show detectives seized 26 items from 2 Trails Carolina locations, among them a sleeping bag, a tent alarm, the boy's belongings, and more. Jennifer Emmert, News 13.
Great. Thank you. I was muted. I didn't want you all to hear me crying during that. I apologize. The important thing to note here is that this 12-year-old boy was in a bunkhouse of 10 boys and 4 staff members. When he was found at 7:45 in the morning, he was already in rigor. He was in rigor mortis. He was wearing no pants and no underwear. They were located above his right shoulder. When you're in a bivvy, they do something called wrapping you in a burrito. You're like a burrito. Kristen, I'm really sorry to make you feel this way. I do. But I can't sleep another night without covering this. And to everybody, I apologize if this hurts, but it's haunting me and I have to speak out. So he was in full rigor. They claim that they checked on him at 12, 3, and 6. That's impossible. rigor mortis takes several hours to set in. So taking the children, there's 18 children total that were on the property. And another side story that's quite sad is that 10 of the 18 children's parents refused to take them home. So they're lost somewhere in the DHS system in North Carolina right now. We have no idea of their whereabouts, but they are not they're not being questioned. Questioned is unfair. They're not being interviewed. Their parents are not agreeing. Their parents are still brainwashed into thinking that their children are getting the correct help. But I don't understand how you could be thinking that when a child died in the care of the people you're entrusting your children with. So another thing here, let's check this one out. If someone restrained me like that, I would literally panic and lose my mind. I'd rather be dead, and I'm 58 years old, not 12. That's the whole thing. So this kid had a panic attack. He had marks on his neck, like restraint marks, and bruising around his eyes, which is a sign of restraint. And when they went to roll him over on his side, his mouth was foaming. Now that could be poison. It could be several things, but I don't want to do any speculation. I want to stick to the facts about this, because this is really legitimately the most disgusting thing I've ever heard regarding deaths. And we've lost over 350 children to these programs. Now, the next thing we already heard about this, but I want to share it, and I'm going to read it out loud. But this is the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services statement, where they say the Transylvania County Department of Social Services and Sheriff's Office, along with staff from the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, have been conducting investigations of Trails Carolina following the death of a child on February 3rd, 2024. The decision has been made to remove all children from the care of Trails Carolina, and all new admissions are suspended. While the investigation is ongoing and we cannot comment on specific details, it was determined that action needed to be taken to ensure the health and safety of the children. Parents have been notified, and children will be temporarily taken into the care of Transylvania County DSS. The death at Trails Carolina is tragic and concerning. We extend our deepest sympathies to the family and loved ones of the child who died, and commit to them that we are conducting a thorough investigation with our county partners and will take every appropriate step based on the outcome of our and other investigations. I would also like to point out that the FBI is now involved. So it's a good question, Cosmic. I have theories. My greatest theory being that it is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And anything that's multi-billion dollars, it's not going to get any attention. There is not a petition yet to send to Congress, but it's a very good idea. I might go ahead and start that. I don't know. You guys let me know in the chat what you think about change.org's petitions, or if anybody knows of a better place to start a petition, because I would be all for it. I don't understand how I don't understand how they've gotten away with all of these horrible. So from 2010 to 2019, they've had 50 infractions. From 2014 to 19 days ago, 2 kids have died. And now a survivor has come forward and filed a lawsuit against Trails Carolina for SA. And I'm very proud of that survivor for doing so. We need it to be shut down. And we don't just need that location to be shut down. There are 4 total, I believe, of Trails Carolina wilderness programs, but they are also under the umbrella of a company called Elevations RTC. And that's something that we've been going after for a while. We just continue to compile information. I want to share now Trails Carolina's official statement, which I find to be pretty disgusting, but we're going to read that. Okay. After 5 p.m. Eastern Time on February 15th, DHHS threatened and intimidated parents. Let me blow this up a little bit for my eyes. By demanding parents travel from all over the country to pick up their children, or DHHS would take their children into custody. Just a quick side note. These children that don't live in the state of North Carolina are kidnapped from their beds in the middle of the night by two strangers while their parents stand by and watch. That's not just a wilderness program. That is a troubled teen industry program guideline. I did not have that happen to me. Meg Applegate, who you saw earlier, did. Paris Hilton also was kidnapped from her own bed. So it's a large practice for these programs. Okay. The children were receiving high-level clinical care, joke, for complex mental health diagnoses requiring experienced professionals with full knowledge of critical medications and specialized treatment regimes. And let me make a statement about that. The counselors, this daily staff, made minimum wage, and the only requirement for the job was a GED. Is that therapeutic care? I say no. Normally, locating alternative programs and matching children for placement takes several weeks. This negligent and reckless move by the state denied parents the opportunity to continue to care for their children in the appropriate manner. 100% of parents did not want their children to leave the program because the program brainwashes the parents into believing everything that they say and nothing that their children say. Their phone calls are monitored. Their written correspondence is monitored. Everything is denied you for a certain period of time, and then you're always listened to or watched while you are speaking with your parents. I can say that from experience. Parents believe the program is safe and do not want their children's treatment disrupted by the state, which has continued to make reckless decisions based on false and misleading information from the Transylvania County Sheriff's Office. Local, experienced, and knowledgeable DSS social workers on site have indicated in written reports and conversations with program staff that kids are safe, properly supervised, and at no risk of harm. We have no receipts of any of these conversations or written reports, so I don't buy any of it. Previously undisclosed by the sheriff was the illegal and unauthorized removal of 4 young boys aged 10 to 12 on the evening of February 6th. The boys were detained at the sheriff's office until 1 a.m. Parents called the sheriff to prevent the infliction of further trauma on the boys who had not yet been informed of the tragedy. Parents were lied to as the sheriff stated he did have custody of the children and the children were not on the premises. I haven't fully found enough information on what this garbage paragraph means, but if the sheriff did have them in their building, it was only more than likely because they were in the same bunkhouse as this young boy who tragically died. This is great. We grieve with the family of the student who tragically passed and have promised to do everything we can to determine what happened, which is why they refuse to cooperate with law enforcement, right? Based upon preliminary findings by state agencies, internal investigation, information, and conversations with officials, staff, and known experts, I'd like to know who they are, everything points to an accidental death. The Transylvania County Sheriff's Office has maintained a biased approach in what appears to be an attempt to close a program that has successfully treated and helped restore and heal more than 2,700 families and saved lives. Nothing about the ones that they've lost or the lives that have ended after or the lives that were destroyed after being at their program. The impact of the state's reckless actions is far-reaching. The 18 vulnerable children forced to leave a safe healing space against their parents' wishes have suffered permanent, serious, and unnecessary harm. There are limited places where parents can turn to find the necessary care for severe mental health diagnoses and complex treatment. This is a tragic and unnecessary loss for parents, children, and 75 plus staff members who have poured their heart and soul into helping kids. The sheriff and DHHS likely did not have the evidence to close the program and take its license through appropriate and generally accepted judicial review. Calling and intimidating parents to pick up their children was an attempt to achieve their nefarious goal while avoiding fair and appropriate due process with factual disclosures. I find that to be a disgusting statement myself, and if anybody's telling lies, it's them. Oh, hey, Lord Kiss Freak. Yes, gaslighting, Mary. Absolutely 100% gaslighting. That, nothing has ever made me think of Scientology, not to drag Scientology into this, but I am going to anyways, moving forward. They have their own troubled teen industry program called the Delphian Academies. It used to be called Delphi. But it very much reads cult-like to me in their paragraph after paragraph of lies and cover-ups while they're blaming others. Why would you not want the children to talk to the law enforcement? Don't you, if you're doing a thorough investigation, wouldn't you want the children to tell what they saw? No, you don't want that because you don't want to lose your money. It's so cold, that statement, like they don't think they did anything wrong. They don't think they did anything wrong. And that is very disgusting to me. Let's see. No, wait. I apologize for this little part right here of my. Okay, so now I want to read something from the Transylvania Times really quick. Thank you for sticking with me on this. I appreciate each and every one of you. Okay, so this is search warrants detail how child's body was found. 2 Transylvania County sheriff's search warrants and a newly issued North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services letter provide additional details on how a 12-year-old camper's body was found at Trails, Carolina earlier this month. The TCSO claimed in a press release the February 3rd death at the Lake Toxaway-based nature therapy camp appeared suspicious, and the staff had not completely cooperated with the investigation. The boy had arrived less than 24 hours before from New York and was found dead when investigators arrived. That also means there's a possibility that those who transported him there may have harmed him as well. But we don't have any facts to back that up. I'm just putting that out there as a possible something that could have played a part. Not sure. Trails Carolina refuted those accusations in its own press release, saying staff had cooperated. The camp was conducting its own internal investigation and the death appeared accidental. Search warrants dated February 6th by TCSO detectives were issued to the camp for a crime of involuntary manslaughter. The warrants were issued for 2 separate locations, at 500 Winding Gap Road in Lake Toxaway and 816 Sundance Lake Road in Pisgah Forest. I hope that's right. According to the warrants, the boy was found lying on the floor of a bunkhouse on a mat. The body was in rigor mortis at this time and was cold to the touch, said the warrants. He was laying on his back with his arms on his chest and his knees bent upward toward the sky. Excuse me. A CPR mask covered his face and he was not wearing pants or underwear. According to the warrants, with those clothing items were lying next to his right shoulder. Camp counselors said they did not know how his clothing items got into that position, according to the warrants. I have some guesses. Once the officers rolled his body over, he began to foam at the mouth, which could have indicated that he ingested some sort of poison, said the warrants. The medical examiner examined the body at the scene. He ordered the body to be transferred to the morgue for autopsy, where more examinations were performed and documented. A counselor told investigators at the sheriff's office the boy had arrived loud and irate, and explained that while he refused to eat dinner at camp, he later calmed down and ate some snacks. Now, let me ask everybody before I finish this. You're 12 years old. It's 1 a.m. You're laying in bed sleeping, and 2 large men wake you up, and they look at you and they say, you're coming with us. You can do it the easy way, or you can do it the hard way. Would you be loud and irate? I would. The counselor also explained the boy's sleeping arrangements. Following camp protocol, the boy had to sleep on the floor of the bunkhouse on his first night, the warrants said. Warrants indicate the base layer is made of heavy-duty plastic, cut approximately 6 feet and tied on each end with a string. A sleeping bivvy was placed on top of the plastic with one side collapsed and the other held up by a flex pole, the warrants said. A sleeping bag was placed within the tent. A small alarm apparatus was placed on the sleeping bag zipper, which was triggered whenever someone tried to exit. Sometime between approximately midnight and 12:30 a.m., the counselor said the boy began to experience a panic attack, according to the warrants. The counselor and another counselor stood along the wall while the boy experienced the panic attack and high anxiety. So these people just stood there up against the wall and watched this kid have a panic attack at 12 years old on the floor, a wooden floor of a little box bunkhouse. The counselor did not mention if he or the other counselors attempted to assist the boy, according to the warrants. He said the boy could exit the bivvy at any time, but he kept stating we would open or close the bivvy. The boy was checked out at midnight, 3 a.m., 6 a.m., and was found dead at 7:45 when he was cold to the touch and stiff, according to the warrants. Detectives attempted to gain information on the 4 other campers in the bunkhouse when the boy died. Those would be the 4 boys that were at the sheriff's office that Trails Carolina was complaining about. Trails Carolina staff refused to allow us to speak with any juveniles on site as well as see them, said the warrants. They also refused to give out any of the juveniles' names or date of births or any other information. Transylvania County Department of Social Services attempted to check on the welfare of the children as well and were met with the same refusal by any and all Trails Carolina staff, said the warrants. When they attempted to ascertain the whereabouts of these juveniles, they refused to disclose the information, their location or the location of them. A number of items were seized with the warrants, including laptop computers, notebooks, phones, files, photos, name tags, employee files and reports, incident reports, personal belongings, and medication. State oversight. The North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services issued a letter on February 12th to Trails Carolina. No person should ever experience harm while in the care of a healthcare facility, and we take seriously our role to ensure life and safety of individuals at healthcare facilities, said the letter. Our staff from NCDHSR and NCDSS are working jointly with local law enforcement and the Transylvania County Department of Social Services, including active oversight and providing technical assistance, said the letter. Local DSS staff were on site February 4th, but Trails Carolina prevented access to the camp children until February 6th. 3 days, not 5. My mistake. NCDHHS listed several measures Trails must put in place to ensure any children remaining at the camp are safe and protected. Several of these actions have already been implemented by Trails Carolina as part of the investigation, and those remaining should be implemented immediately. The measures included ceasing new admissions until NCDHSR completes its investigation, discontinuing use of bivy bags for any purpose for all children or adults at the camp, through the conclusion of all investigations in the matter, requiring at least one staff member to remain awake while one or more children are asleep, preventing staff who were in the cabin where the dissident resided from returning to the cabin or campsites, permitting unlimited and unannounced access by local county DSS staff, law enforcement, and NCDHSR investigators to the cabins, campsite staff, and clients. Providing by 10 a.m. each morning, Monday through Sunday, Transylvania County DSS a list of all clients, their group assignments, and locations at Trails Carolina, and whether a restraint of any type was used against that child in the previous 24 hours reporting period. Thoroughly completing and updating the incident report provided to NCDHHS in accordance with Incident Response and Reporting Manual, and providing NCDHSR, Transylvania County DSS, the names and contact information for parents or guardians for all children at the camp, including their state and or county of residence. We want to remind you that the use of restricted interventions must be reported as outlined to the IRIS manual, for which Trails Carolina is subject and must adhere to, said the letter. Trails response: when asked to comment, Trails said in a statement, search warrant document contains misleading statements. There are details we will not address at this time out of respect for the family and the investigation that is still underway. Trails asked parents permission for any children involved to speak with law enforcement and state regulatory agencies, and we complied with each parent's preference as we were required to do, said the statement. Children were moved from the area to protect them from seeing what was happening, not to avoid investigators. We are a mental health facility treating children with severe, complex mental health diagnoses. Not moving children from the area would have harmed their mental well-being. Trails maintains there is no evidence of criminal conduct or suspicious acts based upon all knowledge available to us and information and statements from involved agencies. Trails and all related personnel have not been charged with any crimes. Knowing the truth about what caused the loss of this young boy's life is what matters, and we eagerly await the report by the chief medical examiner. So thank you for letting me do those presentations. Now I just want to talk a little bit about this situation and the impact that it has. Trails Carolina really feeling themselves when they're, Carol, big time cover up. They're really feeling themselves in their statements, aren't they? You know, this is a healing and healthy environment for severely mentally unwell children. I sit before you, a 53-year-old woman who was one of those severely mentally unwell children. Do I seem severely mentally unwell to you? I take 2 medications. I take 20 milligrams of Prozac a day, and I take 1 milligram of Xanax as needed. If I was severely mentally unwell, I would need 8 medications, more than likely. They prey on children who are neglected, abused, ignored, considered a nuisance, any kind of trouble. The parents either can't handle it or don't want to handle it, and they send their children away. To be fair, I am on the camp of survivors who believes that parents are also victimized by these programs. And let me explain. There are survivors out there, as well as parents, who believe that they made the right decision for their children. And that's great. So what, maybe 20%, if I'm being generous, of the children that have been going to these programs for the last 45 to 50 years had a good experience. That's fantastic. Good for them. I'm happy that it helped them. But the rest of us, the other 80%, you know what happens to us? Drug addiction, homelessness, an inability to connect with other human beings on an emotional level because our entire being has been destroyed by these programs. Because every single day they spend at least 30 minutes saying the worst possible things that you could think about yourself to you. Me, because I didn't have a drug problem and I didn't know how to lie about it because I wasn't really that educated on drugs yet. I was a liar. I was a denier. I was in so much trouble. I was going to be dead. There's no such thing as late, sweetheart. I'm just happy you're here. You make everything a little bit brighter. All of you do. Y'all are making this a lot easier for me to do than it would if I did it alone. So I thank you. But this boy, for 19 days, has been haunting me. And I can't keep my mouth shut about it. When I started my channel, obviously I started this channel to expose the abuses of the troubled teen industry programs and the importance of state and federal regulations, hard regulations against these programs to keep them honest, to keep them accountable, and to keep them from abusing our children and destroying lives. This has been happening since, the early 80s with the Scared Straight program and Tough Love. I, unfortunately, am an early survivor. I went in March of 1985. I've spent until 52 years of age not even knowing there was such a thing as a troubled teen industry. And in the last 13 months, I have devoured every piece of information I can find online, books, movies. I've joined the Unsilenced Advocacy Network, which I'm so excited about, as well as Breaking Code Silence. We speak out on Instagram. We speak out on TikTok. We speak out on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, Elon Musk's mouthpiece, whatever. We speak out everywhere. So I took it upon myself to be brave enough to make a channel on YouTube and show my faith and share my experiences. I didn't know that within a month I was going to be sharing the story of a 12-year-old boy losing his life because he had a panic attack. How many of us had a panic attack? Can I get some ones for everybody that's had a panic attack? Because we could all be dead if we were in a room with true grown men who decided to restrain us because that panic attack was scaring them. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for that. I'm working on it, Cosmic. I'm working on it. I want Trails Carolina held responsible and accountable. I want the staff members who were in the bunkhouse charged. And I want the truth to come out. I don't want the boys that were in that room to be further traumatized, but to ignore the experiences that they went through and the things that they saw is what's going to harm them the most. Not having them talk to law enforcement. Keeping them quiet is going to destroy them. Period. Period. If you keep them silent, it'll eat them alive. And when they're released, if they're released, they will turn to drugs. They could end up in prison. They could end up dead themselves. They could unalive themselves because they're haunted by what they saw happen to this boy. Something happened to him. Something horrible happened to him. And it wasn't an accident. Because I don't know any kid that has a panic attack and takes his pants and underwear off, puts them over his right shoulder, puts his arms up like this, and then has his knees up. That says something else to me. I would also like to point out that they did no healing and being quiet. That's right. No healing and being quiet. Now, they did do a grape kit. I believe it was the FBI. I do know that the FBI is involved in this, which is huge for those of us advocating, because if we can get the FBI to take it seriously, because obviously DHHS, try it again. Obviously, DHHS has not been taking it seriously because they've been ignoring violations for 15 years, 2010 to 2019. They're not reporting the last 4 years. I'd also like to point out that the troubled teen industry programs like prisons were open and active during the COVID lockdown. So they haven't stopped. They've been going continuously. And something that's very important for everybody to know as well is that they are, oh darn, I lost my train of thought. DHS is not doing anything. They're just letting it happen. They're making money as well. I give a lot of credence to WBTV of Charlotte, North Carolina. They did another story 2 years ago. My apologies. I did forget to bring that video up. I will do it on a follow-up video. I watched that from 2 years ago, and it was amazing. And so because they did that story 2 years ago, nothing happened. And again, just to take us all back to 2014, when Alec Lansing died, Trails Carolina was only forced to pay $12,000 fine for not reporting him missing for 5 hours. And it's disgusting. Mary, PTSD effects for sure, if they're not treated correctly, will last a lifetime. So sad. I agree. Hey, hippie chick, it's good to see you, hon. I appreciate you being here. So this is something that I'm going to stay on top of, but I just really wanted to get this out here. I want it to be known that this young boy's life was cut short because he had a panic attack. And that is not okay. And it's never going to be okay. I'm sorry, hippie. I thought I put a thing up this morning, scheduled thing up this morning. I'll have to learn how to do make sure that everybody gets notifications. Let's see here, Misha. It is time to hold accountable those who swear oaths to serve and protect the ones who pay its salary. U.S., the citizens, not those who are in charge. 100%, Misha. For you too. For you too. This is enough. We're going on 50 years. And that's not okay. 50 years. And we have people screaming from the rooftops that the most important thing, the only thing that matters in this country is the safety and protection of our children. Prove it. I say prove it. I say it to Congress. I say it to every state house and every person representing every state in the United States. Also, every province in Canada, because I know it happens in Canada as well, especially to Indigenous children. I will get into that in another video, but I don't want to leave that out either. Lastly, I want to say that we are on silence and we will not stop until they're all closed. On that note, I'm going to check a couple things here. Let's see. Misha, again, bringing our voices together will create ripples of change. Exactly. Exactly. And while we're creating the good ripples, places like Trails Carolina, Elevations RTC, and others are making negative ripples. But the more positive ripples we make, we'll break theirs, right? We're going to break their wake with our ripples of good. Is that cosmic? Yeah, I will get I'm still doing a deep dive on the statistics of it all. Most places claim a 98 to 99% success rate. They have done since the 80s, and it's garbage. It's not true. We have lost, since we've been paying attention, 350 children while they were locked up in these facilities. And it's not just wilderness camps. So you've got, under the troubled teen industry umbrella, you have wilderness camps, you have therapeutic boarding schools, and residential treatment programs, which would be your drug rehab for juveniles. And that's not including juvenile detention, because those are usually county, state run programs. And yes, many ripples can break banks. They can. Thunder Bay, where can I find that one at? I have a suggestion for everybody who has Netflix, especially in the light of this story. There is a documentary on Netflix called Hell Camp, and it's about a wilderness, a TTI wilderness program. It's pretty awful. Time to speak up a little, strike that a lot louder than, yeah, I agree. That's why I am going to continue to expose Trails Carolina for what they're not doing. Done a few streaming services. Okay, give me 1 second. I want to write that down. Thunder Bay. I don't want to forget that. Also, funny story, side story, but also related. I couldn't stand Paris Hilton for a really, really long time because, she was that obnoxious, whiny voice sounding Erin, right? Well, guess what? That was a character. Paris Hilton is like me. Paris Hilton has been to 4 troubled teen industry programs, and she did a documentary about it, as well as wrote a memoir. And the documentary is called This Is Paris. It's on YouTube for free, at least in the United States. She did play dumb. She played dumb because she didn't want anybody to know what she'd been through. But this is also somebody who has now testified in Congress, testified in Utah State House against the troubled teen industry, and continues to fight alongside Meg Applegate and Unsilence. We're going to win this war. I just hope that we don't have to keep losing kids in the process. And I still don't understand how nobody can explain to me that if children are our number one priority, have more kids, don't get rid of your kids, raise your kids. Okay. Also, don't send your kids to troubled teen industry programs that are going to destroy them and cripple them mentally for the rest of their lives. I have never been able to keep a solid job. The only reason when I was working in music and marketing that I was able to do those jobs is because it was never the same thing. And I was always chasing that impulsive, fun, good time. Because all I ever wanted to do was chase the good feelings, because everything was ugly. Everything was bad. And I couldn't face it. And the only way for me to survive was to keep running. Luckily, I'm not such a flighter anymore, but I am still quite a freezer. Kristen, the eye-opening documentary, the one about Paris Hilton, yeah, it changed everything about the way I see her, how I feel about her. The respect I have for Paris Hilton is beyond. She's a very smart woman. She's a billionaire and on her own. But she has been through so much. And the fact that she's not afraid to speak about it, she doesn't have to. She's rich and famous and perfectly comfortable. But she can't sit back and watch this keep happening to kids. Today, it's still happening. There are children, thousands of children around this country tonight, this evening, that are just sitting in these places right now, 7 o'clock. They're probably having their evening group, the circle, some places call it, where you sit and you scream at people and demean them and say horrible, nasty things to them until it's your turn. The name of the documentary that I was talking about was This is Paris, about Paris Hilton, and that's on YouTube. There's also a documentary, maybe that's the one you're talking about, on Netflix called Hell Camp. But Paris is called This is Paris. Let's see. Behavior therapy in our home was helpful for our daughter. The frustrating part is dealing with insurance to get those services. It should be easy to get in-home therapy. It should be easy. But see, the problem with that is that the insurance companies are also involved in the scam. It's a scam. It's another multi-level marketing scam. And they're playing with people's lives. They're not just people. They're kids. Kids as young as 8, 9 years old in these places. And I know that several of you have kids. I don't have any children, living children of my own. But I do have much younger siblings that I had a hand in raising. I have a niece who's everything to me. And I do believe, Mary, that in-home behavioral therapy, along with therapy with the right clinician, I also would suggest to anybody who is considering getting help for their kids to really do, especially now we have instant access to anything we want to know, good or bad. We have access to everything on these machines. So there's no excuse for parents to not thoroughly research their therapist, to not question their educational consultants at their school who tell them. We didn't have this when I was a kid. There were no educational consultants inside the high schools and middle schools saying, oh, you need to send your kid to this place. We didn't have that. So it's even worse. You don't even have to go to a counselor or a psychologist or a therapist. You just have, I think it's called an IEP. I'll have to look that up for sure. Just looking over my notes to make sure that I didn't miss anything. Thank you for your patience. Great. Okay. And then I'm not sure if I did share with you that 10 of the 18 children who were taken away by DSS from Trails, North Carolina, their parents refused to pick them up. So we don't know where they're stuck. We don't know where they're going. IEP. Thank you, everybody. Individual. Yep. Here we go. Individual education plan. Yeah. Well, it's not an education plan if you take them out of school and send them to a program that's education is to completely break down your soul and your spirit and your individuality. I also want to do some deep diving, and we're going to do an episode, video, whatever. We're going to do something on how many, if we can get statistics on the percentage of kids on the spectrum that are stuck in these programs. Because I firmly believe that when you're on the spectrum, too many people, especially in regular school, consider that defiance, acting out, severe mental health issues. It's not. It's just who they are. And the most important thing that I can say about school is that no child learns the same. Everyone is an individual. Everyone learns their own way. I had a difficult time paying attention because school was not something that kept up with my brain. It was too remedial. It was too easy for me. I was advanced, and my family did not follow through and put me into an advanced school. Because of that, by middle school, I was acting out. By high school, I was skipping. I was running away. I also had really rough home lives. And I say home lives because I was a hot potato and I was tossed around between family members for the majority of my childhood. But we need to scream this from the mountaintops. And we need to make people aware that this industry exists. Because I don't want to go another year. I don't want to go another week. I don't want to go another day having to explain to anyone I talk to what the troubled teen industry is. And I shouldn't have had to wait until I was 52 years old myself to find out that it was $1 billion industry that destroyed my life before I even hit puberty. So, let's see, Misha, parents should be punished for neglect or worse, in my opinion. It depends on the parents. Some parents know exactly what's going on, and I agree that those parents should be held accountable. But there are parents, like my father, who are also victimized by these places. Where my first program was at a hospital, in downtown Minneapolis, Minnesota. I lived in Michigan, where I am again now. And I was told by a counselor that that I had the opportunity to go to a place that was like a resort because I could get away from both of my parents' homes. My father was going through a divorce. My mother had just left her partner, and she said it is a chemical dependency program. You know, I know that you've tried a little bit of stuff, but you know, you're not an addict. But it's a great place for you to go and get away from all of your family drama. They even have a pool. I talked to my dad a couple months ago about it. I've been picking his brain ever since finding out last year. And he told me that they showed him the same brochure. So honestly, Misha, a lot of those places are also victimizing parents. And it's really devastating. Let's see, Mary, my daughter had ASD. We were thankful to find a school towards the last years of her schooling that specialized in kids with ADHD and ASD. The teachers in regular school had no idea how to help her. See, that's exactly what I'm talking about. You shouldn't have kids in those schools if you don't know how to help them. You know, and the schools that they have, or the schools that they should have for children with ADHD and ASD, should be filled with people that are specializing in this and that are caring and that are doing this with love and acceptance for everyone for who they are, not treating them like they're, you know, the bad nuts in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory that the squirrels are just throwing down the hole because they're just no good, right? Get rid of all of them. Get rid of all the bad nuts, all the bad apples. Just, you know, throw them into these, you know, so-called therapeutic programs. I love you too. I love you too, Misha. Thank you. I'm glad you like my voice. I just got it back actually after I haven't smoked a cigarette in 3 months. After 40 years straight of smoking, I'm starting to sound a little bit more like a woman and less like starting to sound more like Kathleen Turner when she was younger than Kathleen Turner now. Oh yeah, about the ones who refuse to pick up their children, right? And these are the same people who refuse to let their children speak to law enforcement because they were advised by Trails Carolina not to speak to law enforcement. Can't keep a cover up if the kids speak. And the kids will speak. That's why they're keeping them silent. So if anyone wants to ask any questions or has anything else that they want to add, I'd be really happy to answer any of that. If not, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. And I thank you. I thank every single one of the 11 of you that are here. You have no idea how much it means to me. I might actually get some sleep tonight. And I love and appreciate every single one of you. And stay tuned because I have a lot more to say about this, and I have a lot more to uncover and a lot more to expose because I am on a mission, and my mission is to shut them all down. Yes, everyone's brain thinks differently, and we need all these great minds to make the world go round. I agree. I absolutely agree. I love you too, Crazy 20. I appreciate that, Brian. I really do. I think this might be it's not the first time I've talked to you, but it's the first time I've seen you on my channel, so I definitely appreciate it. We're all warriors, Kristen, but I wear that proudly. I'm very proud. Yes, Mary, we do have each other's back, and I'm so grateful. And I do, because of where basically all of you come from. I really do once again need to give a shout out to Tommy Scoville at the Lifeboat and Johnny Scoville while I'm at it, at Chase the Heat, Spanx Calhoun, Anik Alexander, Charlie Mullins, Alan Ballantyne, Steve Molesky, Seventh Son, everybody at the Lifeboat, our entire crew of 19.7 thousand people now, for being the ripples of change. Because we can make the world a better place. We just have to use our voices. So on that note, I'm going to say goodnight to you all, but not before I remind you of one thing or ask one thing of you. And this is something that I've decided that no matter how dark my videos are, this is how I will always sign out. If you could do one thing, one kind thing for one person today, and we do it every day, and we all do it, we can change the world. I love you all. I'm sure I'll see you over at the Lifeboat later. Take care of yourselves. Take care of everybody. Oh, don't take care of everybody. We can't take care of everybody. Everybody take care of yourselves. And I love you. Thanks again. Have a great night.